So today we are looking at some serious, and I mean some serious cope posting today. So as we always say when we're covering this type of thing, please don't get too addicted to the cope, or else you may regret its absence when it leaves you. And that was a bizarre attempt at an Immortan Joe depression. That was more like Bane. Yes. Oh, I lived with the cope. I was born into the cope. You merely lived with. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It just see. Cope when you read Cope, it makes you do strange things. And like I say, be careful not to be addicted to it, for you will regret its absence when it leaves you. Oh, my children, oh, blessed be. But anyway, we are talking about one Daniel Hannan. Now, you may remember, in fact, this is something we should probably try at some point watch, was the Leave big presentation where they wielded out Daniel Hannan, Patrick Minford, and Kate Hoey as like three big sort of Brexity voices. And of course, Daniel Hannan was the brain of Brexit. If you have a Brexit question, then Dan's the man with the answer. And of course, Patrick Minford was the Brexit economist, but he was, shall we say, very quickly wielded back into his cupboard when they realized he was being a bit more honest than they would have liked sort of him to be. So that was the whole thing. And maybe at some point we will get around to watching it. But as we saw just a couple of weeks ago, after, of course, the Windsor Framework had been signed, a lot of Brexiteers, and especially the hardcore Brexiteers, have been on a massive come down, on a massive de-hype train, trying to almost say that actually this is the deal that they wanted all along. When if you really look at this deal, at the Windsor Framework, as it's being called, in reality, if you want the TDLR without going to all the specifics or anything like that, essentially nothing changed for Northern Ireland. The referendum was pointless because in reality, nothing has changed for them. It is like 2016 and the referendum and all that never happened. So this idea that this has been a big win for Brexiteers and reattach the union, a big win, as Daniel Hannan says, it's a big win for the Democratic Unionists, doesn't even pass all their 7 tests. I think it only passes 2. And the DUP have been very firmly clear, unless it passes all 7, they ain't going back into Stormont. So this, ladies and gentlemen, is some serious cope posting from Daniel Hannan. So let's go diving into this. So please, before we before we get, so we say, too addicted to the cope, please do remember to click that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, do remember to ring the bell as well so you get notifications about the channel. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. There's the Pony Club and the YouTube thank you button as well. So let's go over to this. And of course, where better to go for conservative cope posting than Conservative Home? And of course, this piece by Daniel Hannan with the title of "This New Deal for Northern Ireland Vindicates the Democratic Unionists." Except, as we've said before, nothing's changed. Nothing has changed at all. And that is the truth. Nothing has changed for Northern Ireland. Like, Brexit never happened. They are exactly where they were. Nothing has changed. But here we go. So he starts off with, "It's better than anyone expected. Brussels has lifted its foot from the union's windpipe.
EU law is withdrawn from traffic between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and goods can now flow freely across the Irish Sea, and Ulster will have the same tax rates as the rest of the UK. Already, cope. Because you just have to. The first part is, "Ayo, it's better than anyone expected." No, I think one of the big reasons they came about this is they knew that they could not let this drag on forever. They knew sooner or later, because of how much chaos the DUP were causing, because of the damage that this was, well, not really doing a lot of damage to Northern Ireland. Like I say, Northern Ireland has been ultimately flourishing these past couple of years compared to the rest of the regions we have in the UK, because it's in the single market and customs union. And it's hilarious that we see people like this saying how a good, like I say, and Daniel Hannan's going to say how good a deal this is. But as we say now, if Northern Ireland being in the single market customs union is such a good deal and it's better than anyone expected, then why can't the rest of the UK get that same deal as well and also be in the single market customs union? You know, one of the big things we've seen is the loss of arguments that Brexiteers like Daniel Hannan and everyone else was making in 2016. They have lost all the arguments, and I think they know it, and they are desperate to try and not talk about Brexit as much as they can, because they know if they are, or they have to talk about Brexit, they know it's not really that good. So back to it. There is no more nonsense about supermarkets holding back certain products, nor about seeds and seedlings being prohibited. Yeah, what about UK markets, Dan? what about the fact that we have a massive tomato crisis? Because, as we've said, most EU farmers have basically gone, we don't really want to transport fresh produce to the UK because it's a nightmare actually trying to get it into the country now. So they just haven't exported that fresh produce. We are seeing now less fruit and vegetables being available in British supermarkets because of that, the trade barriers that Brexit has put up. Anyway, back to it. So this last point might not seem central, other than the most likable of men, Lord Taylor of Holbeck, and the former Chief Lord Whips, who is in the bulbs business. But though the thought of English soil being banned from Ulster soil has offended me more than can easily express. Okay. Once again, bangers can move freely from Bangor from Glenwold to Bangor of County Down. The Democratic Unionist Party refusal to seek office while such outrages were in force has been vindicated. It was more than just that, Dan. It was way more than just that. They weren't annoyed of these EU rules that were in place. It was far significantly more than that, Dan. You can say it was that all you want, but if you followed what was going on in Northern Ireland, it was far more than that. Also, vindicated, they have not agreed to go back into Stormont yet. So you are very, very, very prematurely celebrating this supposed victory. But he continues, the greatest fear for Unionists, namely that the dynamic alignment would drag Northern Ireland away from Great Britain, has been addressed. The party's 7 tests, by any reasonable interpretation, have been met. We've been over these 7 tests, and they are far from having being met. In fact, one of the people in the comments that actually comments below this actually points out that the Belfast Telegraph, literally the same day that Dan posted this, was the DUP had come out and said it's only met 2 of the 7 tests. So you are very, very prematurely celebrating this DUP return to Stormont. And I've said it now, I don't think they will return. I think there's a chance they might do, but oh boy, are they going to start causing trouble? Oh, absolutely. They are going to try and veto as many EU rules as they can. And then once that starts to happen, that could raise whole new swathes of text on that. Absolutely. So he continues. I have been speed reading the legal text looking for nasties, and so far I haven't found any. Yes, the EU can take action if the unionist veto on divergence is deployed, but that was always the case. Looked at from any angle, the deal is a victory for Rishi Sunak. It's not really a victory for Rishi Sunak. It's more a victory for basic pragmatism, and has shown that actually working with the EU bears far, far more fruit than just being antagonistic. Something we'll get into that Dan really copes about later on in his blog. So, why did the Eurocrats suddenly concede on a series of issues that had previously said they could not be reopened? And this is where, once again, Dan and other Brexiteers have started to change history because, it wasn't Rishi Sunak going to negotiating saying, "Oh, okay, guys, yeah, we've got these problems," because ultimately, really, when you look at how the negotiations went, it was really Rishi Sunak far more agreeing to many of the EU's concerns about how things should work and agreeing to what they have actually proposed. It was not the EU, the Eurocrats suddenly conceding. It was the British government conceding because it knew that it had too many of these grounds because it could not fight these battles forever. So the line from Brussels is that it had to do with personalities. No, I think that's your line, Dan. I've never seen this line deployed, but there you go. Like I say, cope all you want. Ursula von der Leyen, we are given to understand, felt that she had a reliable negotiating partner in Sunak, something she had never felt about Boris Johnson. Her speech at Windsor was led with references to, quote, "Dear Rishi, and the two of us were honest with each other," she said. "We know we now needed to listen to each other's concerns." That's what happens when you negotiate, Dan. This is what happens when you negotiate. Rishi did not just go in and suddenly it was just Rishi's charming personality. It was Rishi deployed Dishy Rishi and was able to charm Ursula to sign this new agreement. No, that's not what happened at all. Rishi Sunak went, right, I want to solve this Northern Ireland Protocol issue once and for all. We are prepared to do a deal. And remember, this whole 2-lane situation was something that was proposed going all the way back to Theresa May. But as we said, every single time we have covered this, why is Daniel Hannan now prepared to accept this deal when a couple of years ago he would have screamed and shouted that this was an awful deal for Northern Ireland? It's a question that should be asked to every one of these hardcore Brexiteers because they are now desperately trying to rewrite history that they were somehow involved in smoothing all this over, when in reality it was them who caused this whole mess in the first place. So he continues with, it's now now personal chemistry can play a part in negotiations. In Brussels, Johnson is still loathed as a class traitor. What? Okay, just I don't see what your evidence for that is, but okay. Fluent in French and Italian, the son of a sometime MEP and an old boy of the school the school of children of Eurocrats. He was supposed to have been a Davos man. He then instead campaigned for Brexit and probably tipped the result, and was seen as unforgivable. I hate to break it to you. This is again part of the whole Brexiteer notion that somehow the EU really cares about sort of the UK and Brexit. It really doesn't. It was just like, okay, you want to leave? Well, this is how we're going to sort of conduct it. There was no emotion really from Brussels throughout all of this. They just went, okay, you're leaving. You have every right to leave. You know, okay, here's Article 50. Go ahead. It has been our side, the UK side, that has put far more time and effort into trying to scupper and say that we hold all the cards, insisting that we could get this amazing deal, and again, still lying about the fact of, oh, global Britain is going to be amazing. You go. Anyway, but back to it. So the bigger reason why Eurocrats proved flexible was that in reality, they were not surrendering anything. When Ursula von der Leyen says the EU has preserved the integrity of the single market, she is right. So if you've preserved the integrity of the single market, that means that the EU still has a lot of the rules and power and all these evil regulations that you have decried for years, Dan. And we go back to asking this same question. Why on earth, when this deal was put by the EU, and in one case, I think it was put forward by Theresa May as well, on at least two separate occasions, why did you and the other Brexiteers refuse this deal? But you're now saying, oh my God, this deal is amazing. What's changed? Is it because that they have felt that this Northern Ireland issue is ruining the issue of Brexit, and that maybe they can deal with a couple of headlines like every sort of couple of months about, empty supermarket shelves or Brexit is causing this problem? Maybe they can deal with that compared to constantly, almost every single week, Northern Ireland sort of making in the news and ruining their image of a perfect Brexit. I don't know. I don't know. So, back to it. So, does the VAT rate in Northern Ireland prevent goods flowing freely from Greece or Italy? Of course not. And if we accept the claim that the whole single market would have been wrecked had one of those bangers from Bangor found its way down to Bangor, into Bangor Erris, in County Mayo, that terrifying eventuality is no more likely now than it was before the agreement. Except it absolutely was, because there was no data sharing agreement, because the UK government refused to share trade data with the EU. Dan, once again, ignoring the history and the part that Brexiteers played in creating this whole mess. Critics might complain that this being so, the deal is no big deal. Why then, they might ask, should we celebrate simply because the EU has climbed down for positions it ought to have never have occupied in the first place? Except it's not. Again, I want to point this out. It is not the EU climbing down. It is the UK government that has climbed down from its hardcore Brexit position, one that it knows, I think, it can no longer really maintain. And that's why we've seen a lot of hardcore Brexiteers. Again, there was the whole rumor that you had Steve Baker off in the corner, apparently crying after he heard that this had been signed, being consoled by other sort of Brexiteers, heard to be saying that Brexit, this was meant to be like the beginning of the end of Brexit. They had failed. So, the integrity of the single market depends on the information exchange and other light innovation agreed under Monday's framework. All the rest, the checks on ferries, the tax harmonization, and, quote, the nonsense about medicines, was a way to give Britain a kicking on its way out. Absolutely not. It was not nonsense about medicines. Again, the Northern Ireland is subject to all the exact same checks, and that they were now, they were. As we've said, nothing has changed for Northern Ireland. This whole New Deal essentially means, for as far as Northern Ireland's concerned, the 2016 referendum never happened. The whole Brexit psychodrama that we're still suffering from in the rest of the UK never happened. That's the real situation here. And they can't seem to even work it out. And Dan is desperately trying to farm a win out of this. Hence why that is his line. Oh, it was just a way to give Britain a kicking on the way out. That was it. It was all the dastardly EU's fault. Again, the typical Brexiteer, bargaining line. Just blame the EU for everything. We never did anything wrong. So that thought is not how human psychology works. As a species, we anchor our expectations to the status quo. The original protocol might have been a consequence of the 2017 general election result and the subsequent Benn Act. It absolutely wasn't a result of the 2017 general election. It was more a result of Boris Johnson's oven-ready Brexit deal. This is what I mean by Brexiteers are trying to rewrite history. But having run concessions out of a weakened British government, we can remember by the same MPs who went on to moan about what a bad terms ministers had struck. Because it was a bad deal. And we could see it was a bad deal. And remember, Brexiteers like Daniel Hannan had been assuring us that we'd be getting this amazing deal. It would be amazing. But no, that's not what happened. And of course, who's to blame? Well, it's Brussels, because his next line is Brussels was not going to surrender them easily. It's the deal that we have signed is still an incredibly bare bones deal. Just because Northern Ireland is now sorted out as if Brexit had never happened, because again, it's still the single market customs union, and you've got Rishi Sunak and other Brexiteers who, bizarrely, just a couple of weeks ago, were praising the single market. And oh my God, how good is it that Northern Ireland is in the single market? Well, if it's that good, why can't the rest of the UK have that then? So, yet now the EU has scrapped over 1,700 pages of law. Again, no, they haven't scrapped any EU law. Let's make that abundantly clear. Not a single EU law has been scrapped because of the Windsor Framework. On everything from the customs code to taxation, it has rewritten a deal that it said it could never be reviewed. It has given up the attempt to create an all-island economy, except that was not what was happening. This is, again, a rewriting attempt of history by Daniel Hannan to say, oh, you don't understand. They were never going to rewrite the deal. No, what has happened was that the deal has essentially been changed, not in quite a significant way, but nothing has been rewritten. Nothing has really changed. And if you say this was an apparent attempt to, prior to this deal, an attempt to create an all-island economy, then you have an all-island economy now for the fact that Northern Ireland is still in the customs union, still has that open border between, again, the north of Ireland, the rest of the Republic. We asked the question, has anything really changed for Northern Ireland? And the answer is no. So, why, he asks? Presumably because it is finally overcoming its peak about the 2016 referendum and starting to look at the UK as an ally rather than a recalcitrant province. Um, it's I'll say it again. The EU did not care. It really did not care about the 2016 referendum. And Brexiteers love to put emphasis on that the EU really cared. It really did not at all. But of course, by Brexiteers making it seem as if they did, then this is why they can put all the blame of all the bad stuff that's happening on Brussels. Oh, they only got these concessions because of this. They only turned down because of this. And oh no, they're finally getting over the 2016 referendum. That's why they've changed their mind. There's nothing to do with the fact that the hardcore Brexiteers have really lost all their arguments on Brexit. So there is now an opportunity for movement on several other issues, from collaboration on defense procurement to scientific research to visas for performing artists and the equivalent in financial services. Only if, of course, we keep to that deal. Bear in mind, this deal is sort of fully set to be fully implemented in about 2 years' time. Now, of course, the chances are they ain't going to be in power in 2 years' time. So I wonder how quickly the Conservatives are going to suddenly start bashing this deal or saying that Labour has altered it in some way and it's not working and it's Labour's fault that it's not working. You can already see the writing on the wall and the direction they want to take. But here's the thing. We will end up doing more deals, more alignment deals. That is inevitable. And that is what Labour has set out it will do. We're going to go and do more deals. We're going to do not only deals on these collaborations on defense procurement and scientific research, but we will ultimately end up doing alignment deals as well to get rid of more of those Brexit barriers that have been put in place. The then question, as we always said would happen, if you do all these alignment deals or you start doing them, the then question then becomes, well, why aren't we in the single market customs union? Look how well Northern Ireland's doing in the single market customs union. Even Rishi Sunak and other Brexit MPs have said how wonderful being in Northern Ireland being in the single market is. So why aren't we in the single market as well? This is why I very, very much agree that we rejoiners should put sort of fully rejoining the EU to one side and just go straight back for targeting single market membership. That should be our focus and that should be our drive at the moment to rejoin the single market, because it is going to happen a lot faster than I think Daniel Hannan or anyone can really predict this. That is certainly seems to be the case. So, who can object to working more closely with our nearest neighbors and largest trading partners? Really? Largest trading partners? Interesting, because Daniel Hannan, one of the people, and certainly one of the many people during the 2016 referendum, who was constantly saying that the EU meant nothing to us in terms of trade. Interesting now that all of a sudden there are nearest neighbors and largest trading partners. That in itself is a bizarre term. It's just, you can see already why they are. They're desperately trying to change history and said, oh, I never said that because I said this, a couple of years later on. So it's a horrible measure of the polarization that followed Brexit, that hardliners on one side were positively willing the EU to be as unreasonable as possible, while hardliners on the other side came to see the intergovernmental cooperation as surrender. No, we want cooperation. we want it, because the second you start to cooperate, immediately the idea that Europe is an enemy, that we can't work with them, that's why we had to leave, because oh my god, Europe's bad. But if we're working with Europe that closely, then why aren't we part of it? Once again, all the arguments of Brexit have now well and truly crumbled. But even now, they're still determined to say, "Oh no, you don't understand. The Brexit just needs a couple more years. Just give it a couple more years, guys. You'll see the benefit. Trust us. Trust us on this one." So anyway, he continues. "I'm pretty sure, though, that most leavers meant it when they said that we should be good neighbours rather than grudging tenants. I'm pretty sure that most Remainers mean it when they said mean it when they said that. However, however much they regretted the result, they wanted to work proactively with the EU from the outside. Yes, because that it actually gains us a massive way back into the EU, because the more proactively we work with the EU, the more it massively undermines the argument of leavers that we could go off and do these old things. And again, it just completely undermines all their arguments that, you know, because it makes more sense then if we're doing all these things. Why aren't we why are we working from the outside? Why can't we work with them in the inside? So the more deals we do, the more we quickly get back into rejoining the EU. So nearly 7 years after the campaign, we are finally moving towards the kind of deal we might have had all along had we never joined. Um, Agree to disagree, but again, whatever. Then this is definitely a rewriting of history. Johnson's strategy was said to be to be to sign whatever was needed to affect Brexit and then improve the terms once we were out. If so, he has succeeded spectacularly. Again, trying to big up Johnson. Oh, it's not just. I get the feeling that that wasn't meant to be the last sentence. I get the feeling maybe Dan added that to try and justify him backing Johnson's deal, or at least the other Brexiteers trying to back Johnson's deal. That's where I get that sense of that. Oh, we were, oh, yeah, Johnson's deal. Don't worry about it. That's why we backed it, because yeah, again, we could just improve it once we were out. No, hardcore Brexiteers have been saying for years now, even from the moment, well, literally 3 months after, like they signed Johnson's deal, they were like, "Oh my god, this deal is awful. This is a terrible deal. We need to get even further out of the EU. We need to get even further out. We need to Brexit even harder." And why it's a real Dan and others and other Brexiteers we've covered on this channel for the past couple of weeks. And I have no doubt this rewriting of Brexit history will continue. I have absolutely no doubt it will continue. Why? Because they know they are losing the arguments. They know and can see the polls that we have seen that everyone regrets Brexit, that everyone thinks it was a bad idea to do Brexit, and that they know the benefits that were promised of Brexit were never going to be delivered, haven't been delivered. And ultimately, the big case is now asked, well, why did we do Brexit? If there's all these benefits and they haven't materialized, why did we do Brexit in the first place? And they are terrified now of that question starting to be asked, because it is starting to be asked slowly but surely. This is why they are starting to change history. That is why you get that bizarre little tag along at the end. Oh, yeah, Johnson actually succeeded in his deal, because, it would be signed. It doesn't matter. We'll sign whatever we want to get Brexit done, and then we can just improve it afterwards. That is a massive rewriting of history, Dan. And I think he knows it, because other hardcore Brexiteers immediately afterwards were saying how awful Johnson's deal, how it still keeps us tied to a lot of EU rules and sort of regulations, the level playing field. They complain about that. Like, no, we need to move further. No, you don't understand that online protocol is terrible. We should just ditch that. We need to just rip it up completely. We need to trigger Article 16 on that. I mean, it's hilarious I think that they're trying to change, sort of rewrite history and the fortunes, because all of us who have all followed Brexit since 2016, we know what they've said in very, very good detail. Very good detail. Remember, the guy who wrote this, Daniel Hannan, infamously said on Sky News, and you can still see it. He was having a conversation on Sky News, and there was another guy who was from the Remain campaign. I can't remember the name now. But they said, "Look, a vote for leave is a vote to leave the single market." Daniel Hannan immediately retorted. Again, you know this quote because it is my favorite one of especially of this time period. He immediately retorted, saying, "No, a vote to leave is not to leave the single market. Only a fool would leave the single market and customs union." And yet, what happened? It was only because hardcore Brexiteers, these hardcore zealots, just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, that we ended up where we are now. And it is negatively affecting our economy. It's negatively affecting anything. None of the benefits have ever materialized. They will never materialize, no matter how much they might wish for them to do so. Ultimately, we had Angela Leadsom just a couple of days ago mentioning 3 Brexit benefits. Again, they are hardly Brexit benefits, but this is what the situation they are now. They know their argument is losing, and they're panicking, and they're now trying to rewrite history, because the argument will eventually, I think, come from them. Oh no, we don't need to rejoin. We're actually in the perfect situation now. All we need to really do is just improve. We need to improve Brexit, not get rid of it. We just need to improve it. And of course, you'll still have people like Nigel Farage running around saying, "Oh, you don't understand massive Brexit betrayal." Even just a couple of we did the video for the Pony Club of the guys, and what in that video, Farage was like, "This is a terrible deal. This is Rishi Sunak has made a colossal mistake." But anyway, there you go. So yeah, that's Daniel Hannan's Cope posting. Because oh my, what a Cope piece that was. But yeah, trying to say that this is the right deal, the correct deal all along. When Hannan and others have been saying that Johnson's deal was the correct one all along. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is nothing but Cope posting by Daniel Hannan. And as we said at the beginning, don't be addicted to the Cope, because you will regret its absence when it's gone. Just again, my Temptation Morton show. But yeah, as always, guys, have a Mad Max day. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.